At 16, my stepdad made me sign papers for insurance purposes. I signed without reading. 8 years later, I found out I'd signed over power of attorney, and he'd been talking out loans in my name since I was legal. Part 1. The signing. The kitchen smelled like burnt coffee and resignation that Tuesday afternoon when Marcus slid the manila folder across the table toward me. I was 16, still wearing my soccer uniform from practice, my cleats leaving dried mud tracks across Mom's pristine white tiles, the ones she'd saved up for 3 years to install. Maya, sweetheart, I need you to sign these real quick, Marcus said, his voice carrying that particular blend of casual authority he'd perfected over the 4 years he'd been married to my mother. Just insurance paperwork. Your mom and I are updating our policies, and since you're my stepdaughter, we need your signature to keep you covered under our plan. I remember the exact weight of the pen he handed me, a silver Montblanc that had belonged to his father. He told me once. Too heavy, too expensive for a 16-year-old's hand. I remember how the leather chair squeaked as I leaned forward, how the ceiling fan clicked with every rotation, how the stack of papers seemed thick for something as simple as insurance. Can I read it first? I asked, flipping through the pages. Legal jargon swam before my eyes, words like irrevocable and authorized and power of attorney that meant nothing to my teenage brain still foggy from sprints and scrimmages. Marcus laughed, that warm, slightly condescending chuckle that made you feel silly for asking questions. Maya, it's just standard stuff. Trust me, I wouldn't put anything in front of you that wasn't in your best interest. Besides, your mom already signed her portion. We're just waiting on you, so we can get this to the insurance company before 5. He checked his watch, a Rolex gold-faced, catching the afternoon light streaming through the window. Time pressure. A tactic I wouldn't recognize for 8 more years. Mom walked in then, carrying grocery bags, her nurse's scrub still on from her double shift. She looked exhausted, the kind of bone-deep tired that comes from 12 hours on your feet in the ICU. Dark circles shadowed her eyes, and I watched her lean against the counter like it was the only thing keeping her upright. Oh, good. Maya's signing the insurance papers, she said, setting down the bags with a heavy sigh. Marcus, honey, thank you for handling all this. I don't know what I'd do without you taking care of the administrative stuff. Something in her voice made me pick up the pen. Gratitude. Relief. My mother, who'd raised me alone from age 6 until I turned 12, who'd worked double shifts and night rotations and holidays to keep us fed and housed, finally had someone to lean on. Marcus had swept into our lives like a fairy tale, successful investment banker, generous, attentive, always knowing exactly what to say to make Mom's stress lines soften. I signed. 3 places, my name in looping teenage script, Maya Rodriguez. Then Marcus flipped pages, pointed, and I initialed. And initialed. And initialed again. All done, he said, sliding the papers back into the folder with a satisfied smile. Now that wasn't so hard, was it? How about I order us some pizza? Pepperoni and mushroom, your favorite. That was Marcus's way. Every transaction came with a small reward, a gesture that made you feel cared for, that made questioning him seem ungrateful. I smiled, nodded, and went upstairs to shower. By the time I came back down, the papers were gone, filed away somewhere in Marcus's home office, the room he kept locked, the one sanctuary in our house that neither Mom nor I were allowed to enter without permission. For client confidentiality, he'd explained when we'd first moved into this house in the suburbs, this 4-bedroom colonial with a 2-car garage and the privacy-fenced backyard that seemed like a palace compared to our old apartment. I handle sensitive financial information. It's nothing personal, just professional protocol. We'd believed him. Why wouldn't we? Hashtag part 2, the golden years. The next 2 years passed in a blur of teenage normalcy. I made varsity soccer captain junior year. I got accepted to state college with a partial athletic scholarship. I dated Tommy Alvarez for 11 months until he cheated on me with Sarah Chin, and I cried into my pillow while Mom brought me ice cream and assured me there would be other boys. Marcus took me to a Sounders game to cheer me up and bought me an expensive jersey. Mom seemed happier than I'd ever seen her. The constant financial stress that had haunted my childhood, the shut-off notices, the choosing between groceries and medicine, the cars that always broke down at the worst possible moment, all of it evaporated. Marcus paid for everything. He insisted on it. Your mom deserves to be taken care of, he'd say whenever she protested about the cost of something, new furniture, a vacation to Hawaii, the pool he had installed in the backyard. She's worked hard enough. It's my turn to provide. He paid my college application fees. He bought me a used Honda Civic for my 17th birthday. When I needed a new laptop for school, he ordered top of the line without blinking. When I got into college, he promised to cover what the scholarship didn't. You're my daughter, too. He told me the night of my high school graduation, his hand on my shoulder as we stood in the backyard, tiki torches flickering around the party he'd thrown for me. Maybe not by blood, but family isn't just DNA. It's choice. And I choose to be here for you, Maya. Always. I hugged him. I actually hugged him and thanked him and meant it with every fiber of my 18-year-old heart. 3 months later, I moved into my dorm room at the University of Washington. Marcus and Mom drove me, helped me unpack, made my bed with the expensive sheets Marcus had bought. Mom cried. Marcus took photos. It was picture perfect. Part 3. College and distance. College was freedom. Not just from childhood, but from the careful choreography of life in Marcus's house, the unspoken rules about which rooms were whose territory, the way dinner had to be at 6 sharp, the pristine cleanliness he expected maintained at all times. My dorm room was chaos. Textbooks stacked on every surface, clothes draped over chairs, empty energy drink cans forming a small city on my desk. I majored in social work, inspired by the social workers who'd helped Mom and me during the lean years. I made friends, real friends, the kind you meet at 2 a.m. in the dorm kitchen, bonding over microwave ramen and shared anxiety about midterms. I joined clubs. I protested. I debated. I became myself in ways I hadn't known I needed to. Marcus paid my tuition bills. Every semester, without fail, the money appeared in my student account. He covered my meal plan, my textbooks, my dorm fees. When I called home to thank him, he always said the same thing. Just focus on your studies, Maya. That's payment enough. Mom visited when she could, but her nursing shifts were unpredictable. Marcus came more often, always with some excuse about business in Seattle. Always taking me to expensive restaurants I could never afford on my part-time barista salary. Always asking about my grades and my future plans with the interest of someone truly invested in my success. Have you thought about graduate school? He asked over sushi during my junior year. Social work master's programs are competitive. It might help to have some financial security so you're not distracted by part-time jobs. I can't ask you for more money, Marcus. You're already doing so much. He waved his hand dismissively. Family takes care of family. Besides, you're a good investment. You're going to do important work in the world. The least I can do is make sure you have the foundation to do it. I was 21, idealistic, and naive enough to believe that generosity without strings existed. Hashtag part 4. The cracks begin to show. It started small. A credit card offer in the mail addressed to me at the dorm, except I'd never applied for a credit card. I threw it away, figure it was junk mail, the kind that finds college students like heat-seeking missiles. Then another, and another. By second semester of my senior year, I was getting 3 or 4 credit card offers per week, plus some debt consolidation letters that made no sense. I didn't have any debt to consolidate. Weird, my roommate Jen said, watching me sort through the pile of mail one afternoon. Are you sure you didn't sign up for something? Sometimes those credit monitoring sites sell your info. I've never used a credit monitoring site, I said. I don't even have a credit card. Maybe you should check a credit report, Jen suggested. She was an economics major, always the practical one. You can get 1 free per year from each bureau, just to make sure there's nothing weird going on. I meant to do it. I really did. But I was drowning in senior thesis research, applying to graduate programs, working 20 hours a week at the campus coffee shop, and planning a trip home for spring break. The credit report fell to the bottom of my to-do list, forgotten beneath more immediate concerns. When I came home for spring break, Mom looked different. Older somehow, though only a few months had passed since Christmas. There were more lines around her eyes, and she'd lost weight. Not the good kind, but the stressed kind, the kind that comes from not eating properly. Mom, are you okay? I asked, catching her alone in the kitchen while Marcus was at work. Of course, honey. Just tired. You know how hospital work is. But it was more than that. I caught her staring at her phone with a worried expression more than once. I heard her on a late-night call with someone, her sister, maybe, speaking in hushed, anxious tones about bills and accounts, and I don't understand where it all went. When I asked Marcus about it, he smiled that reassuring smile. Your mom's just stressed about some budget adjustments. Nothing to worry about. I'm handling it. I believed him. Why wouldn't I? He'd been handling our finances for 6 years without a single problem that I'd seen. Hashtag part 5, graduation and after. I graduated summa cum laude on a warm May afternoon, my cap decorated with glitter and the words social justice warrior, that made my friends laugh and my professor smile. Mom cried happy tears. Marcus took so many photos I was half blind from the flash. That night, at the graduation dinner Marcus hosted at an upscale steakhouse, he handed me an envelope. For your future, he said. Inside was a check for $50,000. I stared at it, my brain unable to process that many zeros attached to my name. Marcus, I can't accept this. This is too much. You're going to graduate school. You'll need money for expenses, for housing, for all those things scholarships don't cover. Consider it an investment in your future. No strings attached. But, Maya. His voice was firm, paternal. Let me do this. You've made your mother and me so proud. You deserve this. Mom was crying again, happy tears, her hand on Marcus's arm. We're so lucky to have you, she told him. I deposited the check. It felt wrong somehow, but refusing felt wrong, felt ungrateful, felt like I was rejecting the family bond we'd built over 8 years. Graduate school was brutal in the way that forges you into something stronger. Long hours, impossible reading loads, field placements where I saw the worst of what people could do to each other and the best of what people could do to help. I threw myself into my studies, into my internship at a domestic violence shelter, into building the career I dreamed of since I was 18. Marcus's $50,000 sat in my bank account, earning a pittance of interest. I lived frugally, worked part-time, kept my expenses low. I told myself I was saving it for emergencies. I didn't know I was already in one. Hashtag part 6, the phone call. The call came on a Tuesday in November, 4 months into my second year of graduate school. I was at my field placement, conducting an intake interview with a new client, when my phone buzzed. Then buzzed again. And again. During my lunch break, I checked the missed calls. 7 from numbers I didn't recognize. 3 voicemails. The first voicemail was from a collections agency. My stomach dropped. This message is for Maya Rodriguez regarding account number ending in 4782. This is an attempt to collect a debt. You are currently 60 days past due on your payment. Please return this call immediately at. I deleted it, hands shaking. Wrong number. It had to be a wrong number. The second voicemail was from a different collections agency. Different account number. Same demand. The third was from a bank I'd never heard of, informing me that my credit card account was in default and legal action was being considered. I sat in my car in the parking lot of the shelter, the November rain hammering on the windshield, and I couldn't breathe, couldn't think, couldn't understand what was happening. I called the first number back. Pacific Collections, this is Derek speaking. Can I have your account number? I don't have an account number.
You called me. I don't know what this is about.
Let me look you up. Name and last four of social. I gave him my information and I listened to keyboard clicking, and then Derek said words that would change everything. I show an account opened in your name in February 2020, currently carrying a balance of $28,547.32, with the last payment received in April 2021. Ma'am, are you denying this is your debt? I don't have a credit card with your bank. I've never even heard of your bank. According to our records, the card was opened using your name, date of birth, and social security number. The billing address is listed as 1847 Maple Drive in Redmond, Washington. My mother and Marcus's address. The address I'd called home for 8 years. That's not my address anymore. I haven't lived there in over 6 years. But you did live there when the account was opened? I guess yes, but... Ma'am, I need to inform you that you are legally responsible for this debt. We can set up a payment plan. I hung up. My hands were shaking so hard I could barely hold the phone. I called the second number. Different bank.
Same story.
$15,283 in debt. Account opened 2019. Last payment 2020. I called the third number. And the fourth. And the fifth. By the time I finished, I was crying so hard I could barely see. 6 credit cards. Total debt. $127,000. All opened in my name. All at addresses where I'd lived. First the house in Redmond, then my college dorm, then my graduate school apartment. All with Marcus listed as an authorized user. Hashtag part 7. The credit report. I went home, my apartment, not my mother's house, and I pulled my credit report from all 3 bureaus. What I saw made me physically sick. My credit score was 487. Abysmal. Destroyed. The credit cards were just the beginning. There were personal loans, 2, 3 of them, totaling $85,000, all taken out between 2018 and 2022. All in default. All with my name, my social security number, my signature, or what looked enough like my signature that the banks had accepted it. And there, in the public records section, I saw it. A power of attorney filed in King County when I was 16 years old, giving Marcus Thornton complete authority over my financial affairs. I remembered the papers. The manila folder. The kitchen table. Just insurance purposes. I called my best friend from undergrad, Rachel Chun, who was now a second-year law student. Rachel, I need help. I think my stepfather has been stealing my identity. She came over immediately. We spent 4 hours going through every document, every account, every detail of my credit report. With each new revelation, Rachel's face got harder, angrier. Maya, this is textbook financial exploitation. The power of attorney gave him legal authority to act on your behalf, and he's been using it to take out credit in your name and not paying it back. Do you have any of the original paperwork you signed?
No.
It was 8 years ago. I don't even know where he keeps documents. We need a lawyer. A real one, not a broke law student. This is criminal.
Fraud.
Identity theft. Maybe elder abuse laws apply. I'm 24, not an elder. Dependent adult abuse then. You were a minor when he got you to sign the POA. Maya, you could have grounds for criminal charges. The room spun. Criminal charges. Against Marcus. Against the man who'd been my stepfather for a decade, who'd paid for my college, who'd given me $50,000 for graduate school, who destroyed my credit and stolen over $200,000 in my name. I need to talk to my mom first, I said. Rachel grabbed my hand. Maya, there's a chance your mom knows about this. Or is involved. You need to be prepared for that.
No.
The word came out fierce, certain. My mom would never. She doesn't even know how to balance a checkbook. Marcus has always handled all the money. She wouldn't. But even as I said it, doubt crept in. The worried phone calls. The weight loss. The way she'd looked so much older at my graduation. What if she did know? Part 8. Confrontation. I didn't call first. Didn't warn them. I drove to Redmond the next morning. My evidence folder thick with printed credit reports, collection notices, and the notes Rachel had helped me compile. Mom answered the door in her bathrobe, clearly just off a night shift. Maya, what a wonderful surprise. I didn't know you were coming. She hugged me and she felt so small, so fragile, that I almost couldn't do it. Almost turned around and left and tried to handle this some other way. Mom, is Marcus home? He's in his office. Honey, what's wrong? You look upset. We need to talk. All 3 of us. Something in my voice made her face change. The smile fell away, replaced by worry, by fear. The same look she'd had during my childhood, when an unexpected bill arrived or the car broke down or we didn't know how we'd make rent. Marcus's office was at the end of the upstairs hallway, the door closed as always. Mom knocked softly. Marcus? Maya's here. She needs to talk to us. The door opened. Marcus stood there in his work clothes, pressed slacks, button-down shirt, barefoot on the carpet. He smiled when he saw me, but it didn't reach his eyes.
Maya.
This is unexpected. Is everything all right with school? We need to talk. Downstairs. All of us. We sat in the living room, me in the armchair, them on the couch. I put my folder on the coffee table between us like evidence at a trial. I got some interesting phone calls yesterday, I said, my voice shaking despite my efforts to stay calm. From collections agencies. About debts I didn't know I had. Marcus's face stayed perfectly neutral. Collections agencies? That's probably a scam, Maya. You know how prevalent phone fraud is. Don't give them any information. It's not a scam. I opened the folder, pulled out the credit report. I pulled my credit report. All 3 bureaus. Marcus, there are 6 credit cards in my name. 3 personal loans. Over $200,000 in debt. All taken out while I was in college and graduate school. All at addresses where I've lived. All with you listed as an authorized user. Mom gasped. Her hand flew to her mouth, and the look on her face, pure shock, pure horror, told me everything I needed to know. She didn't know. Whatever Marcus had done, he'd done it alone. Marcus stayed calm. Too calm. Maya, I can explain. Explain how you committed fraud? Explain how you used a power of attorney you tricked me into signing when I was 16 for insurance purposes, remember? To steal my identity and destroy my credit. It's not like that. I didn't steal anything. I invested. Invested? In what? These are credit cards, Marcus. Personal loans. This isn't investment capital. This is theft. Mom was crying now, soft, devastated sobs. Marcus, what did you do? He turned to her and I saw him shift modes, saw him become the Marcus who'd won her over 10 years ago, concerned, reasonable, slightly wounded. Linda, you know how tight things got after 2020. The pandemic, the market crash, my firm downsizing. I was trying to keep us afloat without worrying you. I used some credit to bridge the gaps, to make sure Maya could stay in school, to make sure we didn't lose the house. By using my name, I said. By taking out credit cards and loans in my name without my knowledge or permission. That's not bridging gaps, Marcus. That's fraud. That's identity theft. I always intended to pay it back. The investments I made, they were supposed to come through, but the timing. What investments? Show me. Show me what you invested in with my stolen credit. He couldn't. We all knew he couldn't because there were no investments. Just debt. Just years of him living beyond his means, maintaining the image of success, the generous provider, the man who had it all under control. On my credit. Mom stood up suddenly, stumbling a little, her face pale. I think I'm going to be sick. She ran from the room. I heard the bathroom door slam, heard her retching. Marcus and I sat in silence. Finally, he spoke, and his voice had changed. No more smooth assurance, no more paternal warmth. Just flatness. What do you want, Maya? I want you to fix this. Transfer the debt to your name. Pay it off. Get your name off my credit report. Restore what you destroyed. I can't do that. I don't have the money. Then sell the house. Sell your car. Sell whatever you need to sell, but you're going to fix this. He laughed, actually laughed, a bitter, ugly sound. The house is underwater. I took out a second mortgage 2 years ago. The car is leased. There's nothing to sell, Maya. There's nothing left. Then you're going to declare bankruptcy and take these debts with you. I can't. It'll ruin me professionally. I'll lose my license, my job. You've already ruined me. My credit score is 487. I can't rent an apartment, can't get a car loan, can't get a credit card in my actual name. I'm starting my career with over $200,000 in debt that I didn't create, didn't spend, didn't even know existed. You stole 8 years of my financial life. Mom came back, mascara streaked, trembling. She looked at Marcus like she'd never seen him before. How could you? Her voice was barely a whisper. How could you do this to her? To our daughter? She's not our daughter, Marcus said, and the venom in his voice shocked us both. She's your daughter. I've been funding her life for a decade, and this is the thanks I get. You used her. Mom's voice rose, stronger now. You used a child. You tricked her into signing legal documents when she was 16. I gave her everything. College money, support. With credit taken out in her name. With debt she'll be paying off for decades. That's not giving, Marcus. That's stealing. I'd never seen my mother like this. Fierce, furious, unshaking. I'd never been more proud of her. Marcus stood up. I'm not having this conversation anymore. Maya, if you want to pursue this legally, go ahead. You'll find out very quickly that it's your name on those accounts. Your social security number. Your signatures. And yes, I got very good at forging them over the years. Good luck proving it was me. He walked out. Just walked out of the living room, up the stairs, and into his office. The door locked. Mom and I sat in the wreckage. Part 9. The investigation. I filed a police report the next day. The officer who took my statement was kind, but not encouraging. Financial exploitation cases are notoriously hard to prosecute, especially when there's a power of attorney involved. Technically, he had legal authority to act on your behalf. You'd need to prove he acted outside the scope of that authority or that he obtained the POA through fraud. I was 16. He told me it was for insurance. Do you have any witnesses to that conversation? Any documentation of what he told you? I didn't. It was just my word against his, and the legal document with my signature that said I'd given him sweeping financial powers. But I wasn't giving up. Rachel connected me with a law school clinic that handled financial exploitation cases. I filed complaints with the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, the Federal Trade Commission, and the Washington State Attorney General's office. I filed disputes with all 3 credit bureaus. I hired a forensic accountant, pro bono, through a nonprofit, who helped me trace where the money had gone. It was ugly. The credit cards had been maxed out on cash advances that went into Marcus's personal accounts. The personal loans had gone to pay off other debts, a cycle of robbing Peter to pay Paul that had been going on for 5 years. None of it had gone to our household. None of it had paid for my college. That money had come from somewhere else, probably legitimate funds Marcus had before everything collapsed. The $50,000 he'd given me at graduation? that had come from one of the personal loans he'd taken in my name. He'd given me my own stolen money and called it generosity. Mom filed for divorce 2 weeks after my confrontation. She moved out of the house and into a small apartment near the hospital. She looked older, diminished, broken by the betrayal. But she stood by me, testified in my civil suit, confirmed every detail she could remember. I should have known, she said one night over takeout in her new apartment, the place barely furnished, her starting over at 53. The locked office. The secrecy about finances. The way he always insisted on handling everything. I should have protected you. Mom, he fooled both of us. He's a con artist. That's what they do. You were a child. A child I was supposed to protect. I hugged her, both of us crying, both of us trying to figure out how to build new lives from the rubble. Hashtag part 10. The court battle. The civil case took 18 months. My lawyer from the law school clinic, brilliant and fierce and working for basically nothing, built a case around the fraudulent nature of the original power of attorney. You were a minor, she explained. You couldn't legally enter into a POA without a parent or guardian also signing in many circumstances, especially one this broad. Plus, he misrepresented the nature of the document. We have your testimony, your mother's testimony, and a pattern of behavior that shows clear intent to defraud. The criminal case was harder. The prosecutor's office initially declined to press charges, citing lack of resources and the complexity of proving fraud when my signature was on everything. But we kept pushing. Rachel organized a social media campaign that went viral. Hashtag Justice for Maya, stories from other victims of financial exploitation, pressure on the prosecutor's office to take these cases seriously. Finally, 9 months in, they charged Marcus with identity theft, fraud, and financial exploitation of a dependent. The trial was scheduled. I thought I'd prepare myself for seeing him again. I hadn't. He walked into the courtroom in a nice suit, his hair graying at the temples, looking dignified and wounded. A man wrongly accused. Our eyes met, and there was nothing there. No recognition, no remorse, no acknowledgement of what he'd done to me, to Mom, to our family. Just cold assessment like I was a problem he was calculating how to solve. The trial lasted 3 weeks. I testified for 6 hours over 2 days, recounting every detail I could remember. The defense attorney tried to paint me as a bitter stepdaughter, a young woman who'd turned on the man who'd been nothing but generous, who was now trying to escape debts she'd knowingly incurred. Isn't it true that you signed every document yourself? Yes, but isn't it true that you benefited from credit extended in your name? College expenses, living expenses, spending money. That's not. Isn't it possible that you simply forgot you'd authorized these accounts? That you spent more freely than you realized and now regret it?
No.
That's not what happened. But I could see some jurors nodding, considering it. The doubt was there, planted like a seed. Then our side presented the forensic accounting. Every withdrawal, every cash advance, every dollar traced to Marcus's accounts. The evidence that I'd never had access to these cards, never known the account numbers, never made a single charge. The timeline showing debts incurred while I was provably elsewhere, in class, at work, hours away from where the transactions occurred. Most damning, the signature analysis. We'd hired an expert who compared my real signatures with the signatures on the credit applications. Different pressure points, different stroke patterns. The work of someone who'd practiced copying my signature, but couldn't quite get it perfect. Marcus's lawyer argued it proved nothing. Signatures change over time, especially from teenage years to adulthood. But the jury saw what I saw, proof that he'd been forging my signature for years. The verdict came on a Friday afternoon. Guilty on all counts. Marcus showed no emotion. Just stood there as the judge read the charges, the findings, the sentence. 5 years in prison, restitution in the full amount of the fraudulent debt, and a permanent restraining order keeping him away from me and my mother. I should have felt triumphant, vindicated. Instead, I just felt tired. Hashtag part 11. Rebuilding. The conviction didn't magically fix my credit. The debts were still there, still in my name, still showing on my credit report. The process of disputing them, one by one, took another year. Some creditors accepted the court judgment and removed the debts. Others fought it, forcing us into individual settlements. Marcus couldn't pay restitution from prison. Whatever assets he'd had were gone, seized, spent, vanished. The house sold in foreclosure, the proceeds going to the bank. His retirement accounts, already rated, were empty. I was left with a court judgment I couldn't enforce and a credit report that told a story of financial irresponsibility that wasn't mine. But I also had something else. I had the truth, documented and legally recognized. I had evidence that I'd been a victim, not a deadbeat. And slowly, painfully, I used that evidence to rebuild. I graduated with my MSW. I got a job at a nonprofit helping survivors of financial abuse. People like me, whose trust had been weaponized, whose signatures had been forged, whose futures had been stolen by people they loved. I became an expert in financial exploitation. I testified before state legislatures about strengthening power of attorney laws, requiring witnesses, adding safeguards for minors. I helped write legislation. I told my story over and over and over until it stopped feeling like shame and started feeling like armor. My credit score climbed.
Slowly.
487 to 512 to 563 to 600. Each point was a battle, each removal of a fraudulent debt a small victory. By age 27, I was at 680. Not perfect, but functional. Enough to rent a decent apartment. Enough to get a car loan at a reasonable rate. Enough to start living the life I should have been living all along. Mom rebuilt too. She moved to a small house outside the city, something she could afford on her nurse's salary. She went to therapy. She dated a little, though she told me she didn't think she'd ever marry again. I don't trust my judgment anymore, she said. I brought him into our lives. I let him get close to you. I should have protected you. He was a con artist, Mom. A professional. That's like saying you should have protected me from a trained sniper. Some people are just really, really good at hurting others. Rachel finished law school and joined a practice specializing in financial crime. We met for coffee once a month, and she updated me on cases similar to mine. There were so many, too many, an epidemic of financial abuse hiding in plain sight. The thing people don't understand, Rachel said during one of our meetings, is that financial abuse is usually committed by people the victim loves. Parents, spouses, siblings. It's not strangers, it's family. And that makes it so much harder to recognize, to escape, to heal from. I knew. God, did I know? Hashtag part 12. Forgiveness and fury. People asked me, sometimes, if I'd forgiven Marcus. If I'd found peace. If I'd moved on. The answer was complicated. I'd moved forward. I'd rebuilt my life. I'd turned my pain into purpose, helping others avoid what happened to me. But forgiveness? That was a different question. How do you forgive someone who stole 8 years of your financial life? Who destroyed your credit during the most important building years of adulthood? Who looked you in the eye and lied, over and over, while draining your future to fund his present? How do you forgive someone who preyed on your trust, your gratitude, your love? Some days, I thought I'd forgiven him. I'd go whole weeks without thinking about him, without feeling that sick rage rise in my throat. I'd feel strong, capable, healed. Other days, I'd get a reminder, a notice about an old debt finally removed, a call from a creditor who hadn't gotten the memo, a friend complaining about their credit score, and I'd think, I'd kill for a 620, and the fury would come roaring back, fresh as the day I'd first pulled my credit report. I started writing about it. First in a journal, then in blog posts, then in articles for magazines and websites. I wrote about the mechanics of financial exploitation. I wrote about the psychology of it, how abusers groom their victims, build trust, create dependency before they strike. I wrote about the 16-year-old girl signing papers she didn't understand, trusting the adult who'd promised to take care of her family. I wrote about the moment I realized that generosity had been a